Although murders are never excusable, some are understandable. When we look into the minds of certain killers, we can sometimes relate to their motives, at least to some extent. For example, someone acting in self-defense, someone who didn't really have a choice. We can at least partly understand more extreme examples, such as murders committed by jealous lovers. Everyone has a breaking point. But there are some murders that are so strange, so utterly insane, that no one can possibly understand why they were committed. These were carried out by monsters, people who seem like a completely different species of human. Without a doubt, these are the most disturbing murderers that exist in our world. And if you're searching for a prime example of one of these types, look no further than Anthony Todt. In December of 2019, Todt killed his entire family, including his wife, his 3 children, and even his dog. But that's not even the most insane part. When Todt finally confessed to the murder, he told detectives why he did it, and you won't believe what he said. In 2019, things were going well for the Todt family, or at least that's what it seemed like on the outside. Anthony was in his early 40s, running a physical therapy clinic, and the family had just moved from Connecticut to Celebration, Florida. Developed by the Walt Disney Company, Celebration has been described as a dream town. But things were falling apart below the surface. Anthony Todt was in considerable debt, and there were questions about the legality of his business. Megan was also dealing with her own issues, allegedly struggling with Lyme disease and a bout of serious depression after a miscarriage. In fact, the family was in such dire financial straits that they were about to be evicted from their residence, just before Christmas. It was at this time that the Todt family entered its most gruesome and shocking chapter. For everyone except Anthony, this would also prove to be their last chapter in the land of the living. On January 13th of 2020, FBI agents and Osceola County deputies decided to give the Todt family a visit. Their decision to come by was a complete coincidence, as they had no idea what had just happened inside the residence. The only reason they showed up was because Anthony had been committing healthcare fraud while running his physical therapy business, and there was a federal warrant out for his arrest. But these law enforcement officers discovered something much, much worse than healthcare fraud. Walking into the master bedroom, the officers found Anthony's entire family dead. They had been lying there for weeks. Anthony was immediately arrested and charged with murder. It was at this point that he was interviewed by the police. No one could possibly predict how shocking his confession would be.
Ask you, could you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear that everything that we're speaking about today is going to be the truth and nothing but the truth, the best of your knowledge, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's a very tragic event, very unfortunate event. Earlier this week, we were called to your home. Obviously, I'm just doing this. All 3 of us have already spoken. I don't know what they treated you for. I don't know if it was something to do with some liver, kidneys, or something like that, enzymes or something.
Benadryl overdose.
Benadryl, okay. How do you feel right now?
Regarding health-wise?
Yeah, I mean,
I feel very sad and very upset that I'm still here. And
yeah. As Is there somewhere else you'd rather be?
With my family, on the other side.
On the other side? Okay. And you do know your wife and children are deceased?
Yes, and that's where I want to be.
That's where you want to be? Okay.
At first, it might seem like Anthony is showing signs of remorse. When he says that he wants to be on the other side with his family, you might assume that he feels bad about what he did, and that he wants to end his own life. But that's not exactly what's happening here. Let's continue.
All right. Well, some progress has been made since we last spoke. Okay. I had the unfortunate event of attending their autopsies yesterday. Okay. And we'll get to the kind of the details on that. There are some questions that I have based upon what I've witnessed yesterday and then what we've last spoken about. So just to clear my mind and go through everything, I'd like you to just start from the beginning, if we can. How we led up to where we're at right now.
Okay. For a while, my wife had started. She began watching these videos, talking about the afterlife, talking about salvation, talking about how families go.
Slow down a little bit right now. I'm just having a hard time keeping up with you too.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's speak up.
And in watching these videos and watching everything going on, she presented them to me, and I started watching them with kind of a uneasy, whatever. And the more and more we watched, the more and more I gained an understanding that there is more than this life here, a higher level of consciousness. And then we started researching, and then we started finding more about the world is coming to the end, the apocalyptic end, and that our families are going to be separated and enslaved, and to avoid this, to all go together. Okay.
You mean die together?
Die together, that's correct. Okay. So, because my wife's been chronically ill for a while, this really appealed to her, and because it appealed to me also, because she wouldn't be in any pain, the family wouldn't be separated, there would be no more sorrow, no more heartbreaking, no more anything. It would be a salvation and everlasting life. Okay? So we kept doing our research, reading up things, meditating, and decided that, this should be a thing. This should be what we should do. Okay? We had sat down and talked with the boys and Zoe just on different things about, death and the way what would happen if mommy died, how would you feel, what happened when daddy died, what would you feel? And because his responses was that we don't want you to die, we want to die with you.
Now the detectives are starting to get the picture. Anthony and his wife started watching questionable videos online. Videos that seem to push them towards unaliving themselves.
Okay? We didn't point blank say we're going to die and leave you behind, but what would you do if mommy and daddy died? And we don't want to live without you. We don't want to live without you. In conversation with my wife, we didn't want to live without them either. We wanted to bring a whole family together and make it transverse together. Okay? So we were coming up with different things of how we could do this. We didn't know how we could do this because we're not violent people. Okay? Not violent people at all. First we said, what if we, started reading different things. There's something came on TV about cough medicine. Okay, so could they have some cough medicine that would put them to sleep, like an overdose of cough medicine, just put them to sleep. Make a nice peaceful death. Okay, so my wife made a pudding pie, jello pie, froze it, nothing happened.
What was in the pie?
What was in the pie? Sleep, ease, these different things with drama, how you do it. The stuff that puts you to sleep.
Anthony clearly just admitted that he and his wife planned to kill their own children in order to bring them to the other side. By now, you're probably starting to realize that Anthony wasn't remorseful when he said he wanted to join his family. He really believes that he sent his wife and kids to some kind of higher plane of existence.
So we kept thinking, talking, and just researching different things. And finally, we started researching. We said, we're just going to have to do some sort of examination. Okay? Plead to death. Okay? That's how they used to do it way in the back, when they used to do sacrificial things.
You take a plead to death?
Bleed to death.
Oh, bleed to death, sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Okay. And so we started researching where would be the easiest to stab, to do, so the kids could bleed to death, maybe in combination with the sleep drug.
Okay.
Okay? And that's how everything left.
Now Mr. Todt is starting to get into the more gruesome details of the murder. You can tell that the detectives are becoming affected by this, although they're trying to remain professional. This definitely isn't the kind of murder you hear about every day.
Their death. How did this go down?
Woke up at 11:30 at night. We set the alarm for 11:30 at night, and got up out of bed. And it was Zoe first.
Okay.
Meg walked into the room, and she walked back into her room.
Step by step. So you guys are sleeping in the master room, I'm assuming?
Yes, my wife and I, yes. And the dog.
And the puppy, okay. Which boy was upstairs?
Zoe was upstairs in her room.
Okay.
Alex was upstairs in his room. Tyler was asleep downstairs in the library room.
And why again was he down there?
The two of them were sick, so we kept them apart.
Okay. All right. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So we walked to the door, Zoe's door. Meg and I hugged and kissed, and pretty much we know what you need to do. Come back at me when we're done. So I went into Zoe's room, and it took me 2 or 3 hours sitting there because it's a tough. But the everlasting salvation and the thought of that everlasting salvation was there, and I needed to save her soul when her to be with us. Men kept coming in. What's going on? I'm like, it'll be done in a little bit. It'll be done in a little bit. It's getting past that. I'm not back, The initial thought was to stab into the umbilicus above the navel, so I could get the inferior vena cava or the abdominal aorta and be bleed out within no time whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I know I tried. I don't know if I ever punctured it. I don't know if I did or not. I saw a little mark on her, but I don't know if I saw anything. But then she rolled and started swiggling, and I put my hand over her mouth and I put a pillow over top of her. So she went, and she started to fade away, and I just held that until there was no motion left.
If only Anthony had listened to that voice inside his head. The voice telling him not to murder his daughter, Zoe. He was clearly having second thoughts. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken him hours to actually follow through with it.
So Zoe's gone. You and Megan console each other, whatever you guys have to do. Mm-hmm. And then what happens?
We go into Alex's room.
Alex's room?
Yes. The one next to the staff room, the one upstairs.
One upstairs, okay.
Yeah. And beforehand, we had talked about the aspect of she's got to hold his feet down. And I'll do the stab.
How old's Alec?
13.
Okay, so he's the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happens?
We walk in. He's on his back. She's just sitting there holding his feet together. We're just in there, just eyeing each other, just gaining the confidence, I guess, And I go to, I stabbed him, and he started kicking, was trying to get up, and he kept rolling. So I ended up putting there was a pillow there, and I put a pillow in the back of his head so he wouldn't hit me with the back of his head. And I reached around with my hand and held his nose in his mouth. And he kept rolling and kicking and rolling and kicking, and then it eventually stopped.
And where was Megan at?
Megan left midway through there and went back to the room.
Anthony is obviously emotional. He's stuttering and seems incoherent at times. But with that said, he's being remarkably straightforward about the murders. It's almost like he's talking about his day at work as he describes killing his 13-year-old son. Next, he speaks about how he killed the last child, an 11-year-old boy named Tyler.
It started bleeding quite a bit, but then being strong, he kept moving. So then again, I had to put a pillow on top in my hand, and he went really quick.
So a lot of blood?
I didn't see much blood because I had him covered up, like how much blood came out. I could feel the blood coming out because it was all over my hand, but it was blood, yes.
At this point, Anthony has murdered all of his children. So what happens next? How will he and his wife join them on the other side?
Alright, so they're all deceased. What do you guys do?
Go up to the bedroom. Just started talking. How do we want to, the kids are dead. What do we want to do now? What's going on? What's our next step? What are we going to do?
You mean this wasn't planned?
It was planned, but it was like just the dog. Did she want to go first? He just said, because there was some discussion of me going first and her staying last, her going first. She wasn't sure which one she wanted to do. So we decided that the dog, we wanted the dog with us. So she held the backside of the dog down, and I put the, I call them Mexican blankets. They're like these blankets around, and then I was able to hold the knot in her snout and her nose closed, and she went peacefully. Picked her up, put her in her bed, and Meg was like, I want to go next, I want to be done, and then went.
So you just suffocated the dog?
Yep.
So if there was any type of marks or anything like that on the dog, you wouldn't know anything about it?
What kind of marks were on the dog? I just suffocated the dog.
You didn't stab the dog?
I didn't stab the dog.
Was there stab wound on the dog?
That's interesting because I didn't stab the dog.
Okay. Well, there was a stab wound on the dog.
Okay.
The dog was collected as well. So. It's neither here nor there. I'm just telling you. Okay.
Obviously, killing a child is much more serious than killing a dog. But there's something truly tragic about the fact that this innocent animal had to die as well. This cruel act really highlights the fact that Anthony is completely insane. He would later be charged with animal cruelty on top of the murders.
Alright, so the dog's dead. Now what happens?
Meg wanted to go.
Okay.
So we have decided, I said, what do you want to get? Your wine? What do you want to help calm us down? So it won't hurt as much. We had some spray stuff, and so she could use that instead. So she wanted some wine and some, it's purple, Paranormal PM. She started taking that a little bit. Gave her the knife, and I laid next to her, and she put the knife into her stomach. Okay. And I said, did you get the spot? It's right here. She said, yeah, I feel it. Okay. I'm laying there for 45 minutes. It's supposed to take about 10 minutes, whatever Greg says. If you hit the spot.
And what is in that spot? What are you talking about?
The inferior vena cava. On the umbilicus. You're supposed to be able to bleed out. They say 1 to 4 minutes, but under 10 minutes.
And what are you specifically targeting within that area?
The inferior vena cava.
Okay.
It's a big blood return. Okay. It's a large vessel, and you bleed out in your abdomen. It's just quick.
All right.
Okay.
How much did she consume wine, or I'm assuming is it grape flavored? You can't do the whole.
Yeah, the first one was grape flavored.
What do you mean first one?
She had a glass of wine with the stuff. Okay. We were laying there for about 45 minutes. After she stabbed herself, she says, I feel nothing happening. Nothing happening. I said, okay, this isn't good. What do you want to do? She said, do we have any Benadryl? I said, we have liquid Benadryl. She goes, let me have that. Let me try some of that. Maybe that'll put me to sleep or let me go sooner. So she was drinking liquid Benadryl. And I was checking back on her, give her some peace. Walked around, came back, and at one point I thought she had passed from doing the Benadryl. She was still there, and she had sat up.
What makes you think she passed?
She was very quiet. There was no motion. I couldn't see her abdomen going up and down. This is from afar without even me going up to see her. Okay.
Was her eyes open?
Eyes were closed.
Was she communicating with you?
When I came up, I was like, Meg? She said, I'm here. I said, okay. So I said, what do you want to do? Do you want to try more Benadryl? Do you want the knife pack again? What do you want to do? And she goes, let me try some more Benadryl. And then if that, we'll do a second. What's that? Okay. Give her a bunch more Benadryl. Like I said, let that settle in for a while. Settle in.
When you say a bunch more, do you got an approximate amount?
I really don't. I know she was a
bottle.
Yes, it was I don't know. It was a big bottle, like a family-size Benadryl thing.
She killed the whole bottle.
In 2 different sippings, yes.
Okay.
And that wasn't happening, so she decided to go through her liver. Okay. I pulled up the thing and the packed liver. We laid it out on where it was on her skin, according to landmarks. And it sits right in this area. So, okay. And she, with 2 hands, pushed in. And you heard like a little click, as if it went through something. Okay, so I was like, okay, sounds like it went through the liver, that's good, okay. She pulled it out, she put the knife right next to her, and I just laid with her. And I laid there and held her, and we just waited. It seemed like hours went by, nothing else happening. I got up, I wanted to check on our boys and our little one, make sure everything was going okay in the house, everything was okay. Came back and she's sitting up to the edge of the bed. And she's cleaning the room. I'm like,
what was she cleaning it with?
There was one of my t-shirts. She had, I think she had a towel at one point.
Okay.
But she was definitely, I can't, but she was up, she was washing it, rinsing at one point. And she's like, this has got to be done, this is taking too long, this is ridiculous. I'm like, shall we go on, look at different other aspects to do this? How do you want to do this? She goes, I want this ended now. I said, okay, what does that mean? She goes, I want you to take the pillowcase, put a pillow and put it over my head. I said, I don't know if I can do that. And she looked at me, she goes, if you love me, you can do this. I want to be with my babies. So yeah, and she just looked at me and she goes, you're strong enough and you can do it. Okay. So I said, why don't you take some more Benadryl, so at least you're not going to fight me. And I'll do it. So she took some more Benadryl. She took some more Benadryl. And maybe about 15 minutes later, I came back in the room. I said, "Do you still want to do this?" And she talked to me like very far out. Yeah.
According to Anthony, his wife tried to kill herself in many different ways, but somehow her body refused to die. In the end, she had to ask her husband to finish the job. So now Anthony is alone in the house with the bodies of his entire family. What does he do next?
So, go on, proceed, sorry.
Okay. So then it came to me, and Meg had asked that I wait a day or two to make sure everybody passed, make sure the house was all set, and that kind of stuff, and so that's what I did. I started the Benadryl, I tried hanging myself, and I also thought that it might be easier. See, I'm not much about guns in the house, but I was reading on Quora that you can kill yourself with a pellet gun.
Pellet gun?
That's what I was reading. It hurt.
Where did you shoot yourself?
In the liver and the heart. I have 2 wounds.
The liver and the heart.
The liver the first time. It bled quite a bit. Didn't do anything, but I woke up later on. And
we'll have to check that out. We'll photograph it later. Is the heart still there?
I haven't looked at it. I'm so excited. It's been forever.
Okay.
That was the last one. I tried the razor blade to the radial artery, which I told you I hit, but I didn't do it well in the tub. So dried up. Zip tie around the neck. The only thing that did was irritate my glottis. I couldn't get down the carotid artery because my neck is too big. So I tried to substitute that in with the towels with pressure points to go in the carotid arteries. I tried to set up hanging over the edge of the beds. Was trying to figure out how to go through and fall on the knife in the right direction to get it upward up into my diaphragm to get my diaphragm. Was also researching, but couldn't quite get to the femoral artery because of the way how deep the femoral artery was.
Where were you doing your research at?
The internet.
It seems like maybe Anthony wasn't really willing to go through with it and join his family on the other side. Maybe after he had murdered his family, he started to realize how insane this plan to reach salvation really was.
Unfortunately for your sake, we are still on this side, okay? You're not with your family right now. So you are going to be charged with their murders, you understand that? That's fine? Okay. So, I mean, it's a formality that we have to take part in, okay? I know you may see things differently.
Oh, I understand.
Okay. Okay. I will make some phone calls to your family just to kind of update them and keep them up to date.
Okay.
Without a doubt, the persons that we pulled from your home are your family. Correct?
Correct, yeah.
It's Megan, Zoe, Tyler, and Alec. Okay. The reason why I kind of went over some of the dentistry and that type of stuff is obviously
decomposition.
Yeah, because of the decomposition, we had a little bit of a delay in that. The family does know, they don't know some of the grotesqueness of it behind it. I've kept it kind of private between us. So we're going to work on, obviously, some DNA stuff and everything like that, and we're going to take it from there.
Yeah, it's good.
And I appreciate, like I said, obviously this has been video, audio recorded every which way. Every part of this investigation, you've been highly cooperative. You've never denied anything. The only discrepancies that we've had is post-mortem stab wounds versus what your version of events is, and that will be duly noted in my report, in my investigation. Okay?
I'm not lying to you about their stop first.
Okay. All right. Okay. So just hang tight for us here.
And with that, the interview ends. This is probably the easiest interrogation these detectives will ever conduct, mostly because the suspect was completely cooperative. But what does that mean for Anthony? After giving his confession, Anthony changed his story. He stated that his wife was actually to blame for all the murders, and that he simply came home one day and found his family dead. Anthony told the jurors, quote, "I came home and my kids were dead. It was the most horrible day of my life. What made it even worse is my wife died in front of me also." Things became even more complicated when a judge agreed to suppress the confession that you just saw.
Accused in the disturbing murders of his wife and children more than 2 years ago was back in court today. Investigators say that Anthony Todt originally confessed to the crime at a Celebration home, then suggested his wife was responsible. West News' Megan Mulatto is live for us in Osceola County. Megan, what happened inside that courtroom?
Yeah, Todt was back in court this morning for a motion hearing that was filed by the state. It was the last motion hearing that needed to be resolved before his long-awaited and postponed trial begins next week. Investigators say Anthony Todt confessed to killing his family, but now that confession will no longer be used in trial. In a hearing earlier this week, we learned the detectives who interrogated him after he was arrested didn't fully inform him of his Miranda rights before their first interview, which is why a judge has decided to exclude the evidence.
Your Honor, the state's position.
In a motion hearing Wednesday, a judge decided to also exclude references to Todt's mental health, a request made by the state.
Based upon the case law, the state's position is that any evidence about the defendant's mental health status, diminished capacity, or any evidence of Baker Acts would be irrelevant and would mislead the jury in this particular case.
Despite the defense arguing Todt's mental health would be brought up,
it's going to come up, it's going to become relevant.
The judge decided to grant the state's request, meaning the defense won't be able to reference Todt's alleged Baker Act, any suicidal thoughts, or mental conditions unless the court deems those issues relevant. Medications, however, can be mentioned.
There is case law that supports that any medications that Mr. Todt was on at the time of his confessions should be considered if they are established by competent evidence by the trier of fact to make determinations as to the weight and credibility of those confessions.
Now, after detectives say Todt confessed to the crimes, he later pled not guilty, then suggested that his wife was responsible. Now it'll be up to the jury and a judge. His jury trial starts on Monday.
Unfortunately, the detective didn't accurately read Anthony his Miranda rights prior to the interview. Among other things, they forgot to tell him that he had the right to an attorney. Instead of reading him his rights word for word, the detective tried to recite them based on memory alone. At this point, it seemed like Anthony's attorneys had just scored a major victory, but almost immediately afterward, the prosecution simply provided documentation of a separate confession, and this second confession was held up in court. On April 15th, it was reported that the trial had come to a close. Before the verdict was delivered, the last surviving member of the Todt family was given a chance to address the court.
This was a personal catastrophe in everybody's life in my family, including myself. I maintain my innocence. I provided for my wife, did everything I could for my wife. She was progressively sick over the years. There were days which were worse, days which were better. She was kept on a pedestal from me. My kids I did everything for them. The weight gain, Ms. Kopko has said, was because I negated myself. 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night because I would be treating my wife, doing for my wife, flying back and forth. I appreciated her medical concerns, and the reason why I would call so much is because Megan would have bad days, and I just needed to know she was okay. It wasn't a control factor. It wasn't any kind of scoping things out or whatnot. It was my fear that my fear that something was wrong with her, and I just needed to hear her voice making sure she was okay. She fell asleep, very rested comfortably. I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs. Okay?
Judge Carson doesn't have the authority to overturn the judge.
No, I understand, but I need to let him know that everything was okay when she woke up the next morning. I kept the kids outside to keep her nice and stress-free. My kids and my wife were everything to me. They were the center of my universe. When I came home, I was shattered. I appreciate you listening to me, sir, and I know you're in your situation. I did not do this. Thank you for listening to me, sir.
Any additional witness or testimony?
No, sir, Judge Carson.
Thank you. The court has been present during the presentation of evidence throughout the entirety of the trial. A jury has unanimously determined after listening to the evidence presented, that you, Anthony John Todt, are a destroyer of worlds, that you destroyed the world of your 4-year-old daughter, Zoe Elizabeth Todt, that you destroyed the world of your 10-year-old son, Tyler John Todt, that you destroyed the world of your 13-year-old son, Alexander John Todt, that you destroyed the world of your wife, Megan Denise Todt. The jury has unanimously determined that you murdered each of them with premeditation based on the evidence presented in this room. As to count 1, first-degree murder of Zoe Elizabeth Todt, you are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As to count 2, for the premeditated murder of your son, Alexander John Todt, you are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As to count 3, for the premeditated murder of your son, Tyler John Todt, you are sentenced to life in prison. As to count 4, for the premeditated murder of your wife, Megan Denise Todt, you are sentenced to life in prison. Now, one of those lives was less valuable than the others. Those sentences will be imposed consecutively. You will be adjudicated guilty as to each count. For the murder of the family dog, you are adjudicated guilty and sentenced to the maximum sentence consecutive, which is 1 year in the county jail. You will get credit for any time that you have already served. Madam Clerk.
819 days.
Any costs will be reduced to judgment. The court will order restitution, reserve as to amount pursuant to statute. You have 30 days from today's date to appeal this judgment and sentence. If you wish to do so, you must do it in writing. If you can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. You'll be transferred to the Department of Corrections to serve your sentence. Anything further, State?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further, defense, at this time?
No, Your Honor.
That will conclude the trial and sentencing process. The State of Florida versus Anthony John Todt has concluded.
Anthony was sentenced to life. The most disturbing murders are senseless, ones that make absolutely no sense. The Todt family killings certainly fit into this category, and perhaps we will never truly understand what caused Anthony to follow through with all of it. Was he even telling the truth? Was his wife in on it? Or did he simply decide to kill them all without any of them agreeing to go to the other side? Perhaps the strangest thing of all is the fact that Anthony was unable to unalive himself after his family's passing. He says that he tried a number of different methods, but was unsuccessful each time. During this period, he continued to live in the house alongside his decomposing family while eating fast food and carrying out normal daily tasks for weeks. Anthony said it himself during his confession. He chickened out. One thing's for sure, this man was totally unfit to act as a husband, a parent, a man. Unfortunately, nobody found out until it was far too late.